Brook Shabbat Yom, brothers and sisters, Hebrews in Jamaica, the Caribbeans, the West, to the four corners of the earth scattered greetings. This Shabbat lesson, we continue the series, brothers and sisters, letters of Pilate to Herod, trial and condemnation of Pilate, part 2, right? We're wrapping up right now, brothers and sisters, right? And these lessons is taken from the lost books of the Bible and the forgotten book of Eden. You guys should go out and search out that Bible and get it. You know what I mean? Added biblical history. Added biblical history. Brothers and sisters. Right? Okay, so the trial and condemnation of Pilate. Now, when the letters came to the city of Romans and were read to Caesar with no few standing there, they were all terrified because through the transgressions of Pilate, the darkness and the earthquake had happened to all the world. To all the world. To all the world, brothers and sisters. And Caesar, being filled with anger, sent soldiers and commanded that Pilate should be brought as a prisoner. And when he was brought to the city of the Romans, and Caesar heard that he was come, he sat in the temple of the gods above all the senate, and with all the army, and with all the multitude of his power, and commanded that Pilate should stand in the entrance. And Caesar said to him, Most imperious one, when thou sawest so great signs done by that man, why didst thou dare to do thus? By daring to do an evil deed, thou hast ruined all the world. All the world. All the world, brothers and sisters. If you take a look at the screen, brothers and sisters, you will see the temple of Caesar. Right, brothers and sisters, the temple of Caesar. And that's in Rome, brothers and sisters, right? Okay, moving on, brothers and sisters, right? And Pilate said, King and autocrat, I am not guilty of these things, but it is the multitude of the Jews who are precipitate and guilty. And Caesar said, And who are they? Pilate said, Herod, Archelaus, Philip, Annas, and Caiaphas, and all the multitude of the Jews. Caesar said, For what cause didst thou execute their purpose? And Pilate said, Their nation is seditious and insubordinate, and not submissive to thy power. And Caesar said, When they deliver him to thee, thou oughtest to have made him secure, and sent him to me, and not consented to them to crucify such a man, who was just and wrought such great and good miracles as thou saidest in thy report. For by such miracles Yahushua was manifested to be the Mashiach, the King of the Jews. And when Caesar said this, and himself named the name of the Mashiach, all the multitude of the gods fell down together, and became like dust where Caesar sat with the Senate. And all the people that stood near Caesar were filled with trembling because of the utterance of the word and the fall of their gods, and being seized with the fear, they all went away every man to his house, wondering at what had happened. And Caesar commanded Pilate to be safely kept, that he might know the truth about Yahusha. And on the morrow, when Caesar sat in the Capitol with all the Senate, he undertook to question Pilate again. And Caesar said, "Say the truth, most impious one, for through that impious deed which thou didst commit against Yahusha, even here the doing of thy evil works were manifest, in that the gods were brought to ruin. Say then, who is he that was crucified, for his name had destroyed all the gods?" Pilate said, "And verily his records are true, for even I myself was convinced by his works that he was greater than all the gods whom we venerate." And Caesar said, "For what cause then didst thou perpetrate against him such daring and doing, not being ignorant of him, or assuredly designing some mischief to my government?" And Pilate said, "I did it because of the transgression and sedition of the lawless and ungodly Jews." And Caesar was filled with anger, and held a council with all his senate and officers, and ordered a decree to be written against the Jews, thus: to Lacanus, who holdeth the first place in the East country, greetings. I have been informed of the audacity perpetrated very recently by the Jews inhabiting Jerusalem, and the cities round about, and their lawless doing, how they compel Pilate to crucify a certain God called Yahusha, through which great transgression of theirs the world was darkened, right? Through the transgression of theirs the world was darkened and drawn into ruin. Determined therefore with a body of soldiers to go to them there at once, and proclaim their subjection to bondage by this decree, by obeying and proceeding against them, and scattering them abroad in all nations. So you see, it's not the first time we were scattered to all nations, brothers and sisters. But again, in this last captivity, it is different. Previous captivities in our history, we were together. 12 tribes were together, right? But in this form now, we are scattered. Only two tribes. Well, Judah is a head tribe, right? But in actuality, it's two tribes. Because when Judah was called out, Benjamin was also there, and Levi also was among Judah and Benjamin. You understand, brothers and sisters? So Judah was kind of in captivity, but it's not only Judah. I have to make emphasis on that. Benjamin was also there, and Levi. Understand, brothers and sisters? Right? So them and scattering them abroad in all nations, enslave them, and by driving their nations from all Judea as soon as possible, show whoever this had not yet appeared that they are full of evil. And when this decree came into the east country, Lacanus obeyed through fear of the decree, and laid waste all the nation of the Jews, and caused those that were left in Judea to go into slavery with them that were scattered among the Gentiles, that it might be known by Caesar that these things had been done by Lacanus against the Jews in the east country, said, and to please him. And again Caesar resolved to have Pilate question and command as a captain Albius by name to cut off Pilate's head, saying, as he laid hands upon the just man that is called Mashiach, he also shall fall in like manner, and find no deliverance. And when Pilate came to the place, he prayed in silence, saying, O Adonai, destroy not me with the wicked Hebrews, for I should not have laid hands upon thee, but for the nation of lawless Jews, because they provoked a sedition against me. But thou knowest that I did it in ignorance. Destroy me not therefore for this my sin, nor be mindful of the evil that is in me, O Adonai, and in thy servant Procla, who standeth with me in this the hour of my death, whom thou taughtest to prophesy that thou must be nailed to the cross. Do not punish her too in my sin, but forgive us and number us in the portion of thy just ones. And behold, when Pilate had finished his prayer, there came a voice from heaven saying, all generations and the families of the Gentiles shall call thee blessed, because under thee were fulfilled all these things that were spoken by the prophets concerning me. And thou thyself must appear as my witness at my second coming, when I shall judge the 12 tribes of Israel, and them that have not confessed my name. And the perfect cut off the head of Pilate, and behold, an angel of the Adonai received it. And when his wife Procla saw the angel coming and receiving his head, she also, being filled with joy, forthwith gave up the spirit, and was buried with her husband. I want to repeat that again, brothers and sisters, right? I want to repeat that again so you could understand, right? And behold, when Pilate had finished his prayers, there came a voice from heaven saying, all generations and the families of the Gentiles shall call thee blessed, because under thee were fulfilled all these things that were spoken by the prophets concerning me. And thou thyself must appear as my witness at my second coming, at my second coming, at my second coming, when I shall judge the 12 tribes of Israel, and them that were not confessed my name, and them that have not confessed my name. And the perfect cut off the head of Pilate, and behold, an angel of Yahweh received it. And when his wife Procla saw the angel coming and receiving his head, she also, being filled with joy, forthwith gave up the spirit, and was buried with her husband. You see that, brothers and sisters, right? Right. The death of Pilate, who condemned Yahusha. Now, whereas Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans, was suffering from a grievous sickness, and hearing that there was at Jerusalem a certain physician, Yahusha by name, who healed all diseases by his word alone, not knowing that the Jews and Pilate had put him to death, he thus bade one of his attendants, Voloshinus by name, saying, go as quickly as thou canst across the sea, and tell Pilate, my servant and friend, to send me this physician to restore me to my original health. And Voloshinus, having heard the order of the emperor, immediately departed and came to Pilate as it was commanded him. And he told the same Pilate what had been committed to him by Tiberius Caesar, saying, Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans, thy Lord Adonai, having heard that in this city there is a physician who heals diseases by his word alone, earnestly entreated thee to send him to him, heal his disease, right? So, having heard that in this city there's a physician who heals diseases by his word alone, earnestly entreated thee to send him to heal his disease. And Pilate was greatly terrified on bearing this, knowing that through envy he had caused him to be slain. Pilate answered the messenger, saying, thus, this man was a malefactor, and a man who drew after himself all the people. At the counsel taken of the wise men of the city, I caused him to be crucified. As the messenger returned to his lodgings, he met a certain woman named Veronica, who had been acquainted with Yahusha, and he said, a woman, there was a certain physician, or woman, there was a certain physician in this city who healed the sick by his word alone. Why have the Jews slain him? And she began to weep, saying, Ha, me, my Adonai, it was my Elohim and my Adonai whom Pilate through envy delivered up, condemned, and commanded to be crucified. Then he, grieving greatly, said, I am exceedingly sorry that I cannot fulfill that for which my Adonai had sent me. Veronica said to him, When my Adonai went about preaching, and I was very unwillingly deprived of his presence, I desired to have his picture painted for me, that while I was deprived of his presence, at least the figure of his likeness might give me consolation. When I was taking the canvas to the painter to be painted, my Adonai met me and asked whither I was going. And when I had made known to him the cause of my journey, he asked me for the canvas and gave it back to me, printed with the likeness of his venerable face. If you take a look at the screen, brothers and sisters, you will see a first century image of Yahushua Mashiach, what it would look like when Veronica take the face imprintation of Yahushua. Right, brothers and sisters? Therefore, if thy Adonai will devoutly look upon the sight of this, he will straightway enjoy the benefit of health. Is a likeness of this kind to be procured with gold or silver? He asked. No, says she, but with a pious sentiment of devotion. Therefore I will go with thee and carry the likeness of Caesar to look upon, and will return. So Volosinius came with Veronica to Rome and said to Tiberius the emperor, Yahushua, who thou hast long desired, Pilate and the Jews have surrendered to an unjust death, and through envy hastened to the wood of the cross. Therefore a certain matron had come with me, bringing the likeness of the same Yahushua upon. If thou wilt devoutly gaze upon it, thou wilt presently obtain the benefit of thy health. So Caesar caused the way to be spread with clothes of silk, and ordered the portrait to be presented to him. And as soon as he had looked upon it, he regained his original health. Then Pontius Pilate was apprehended by command of Caesar and brought to Rome. Caesar, hearing that Pilate had come to Rome, was filled with exceedingly wrath against him, and caused him to be brought to him. Right? Now Pilate brought him with the seamless coat of Yahushua, and wore it when before the emperor. As soon as the emperor saw him, he laid aside all his wrath, and forthwith rose to him, and was unable to speak harshly to him in anything. And he who in his absence seemed so terrified, so terrible and fierce, now in his presence is found comparatively gentle. And when he had dismissed him, he soon became terribly inflamed against him, declaring himself wretched because he had not expressed to him the anger of his bosom. And immediately he had him recalled, swearing and protesting that he was a child of death, and unfitted to live upon earth. And when he saw him, instantly greeting him, and laid aside all the fury of his mind. All were astonished, and he was astonished himself, that he was so enraged against Pilate while absent, and could say nothing to him sharply while he was present. At length, by divine suggestion, or perhaps by the persuasion of some believers, he had him stripped of the coat, and soon resumed against him his original fury of mind. And when the emperor was wondering very much about this, they told him it had been the coat of the Adonai Yahushua. Then the emperor commanded him to be kept in prison till he should take counsel with the wise men what ought to be done with him. And after a few days, sentence was given against Pilate, that he should be condemned to the most ignominious death. When Pilate heard this, he slew him with his own dagger, and by such a death put an end to his life. When Pilate's death was made known, Caesar said, "Truly he has died a most ignominious death, whose own hand has not spared him." He was therefore fastened to a great block of stone and sunk in the river Tiber. But wicked and unclean spirits, rejoicing in his wicked and unclean body, all move about in the water, and cause in the air dreadful lightning and tempest, thunder and hail, so that all were seized with horrible fear, on which account the Romans dragged him out of the river Tiber, bore him away in derision to Venini, and sunk him in the river Rihone, for Venini means, as it were, way of Gehenna, because it was then a place of cursing, and evil spirits were there and did the same things. Thus those men, therefore, not enduring to be so harassed by demons, removed the vessel of cursing from them, and sent it to be buried in the territory of Louisiana. But when they were troubled exceedingly by the aforesaid vexation, they put it away from them, and sunk it in a certain pool surrounded by mountains, where even yet, according to the account of some, sundry diabolical contrivances are said to issue forth. Brothers and sisters, right? Brothers and sisters, before I close out, here's an image on the screen. It's an old Roman coin, right? Pilate's dedication to promoting Roman religion in Judea, and reflected in the coin he struck during his tenure. The mintages produced between 29 and 31 CE bore pagan symbols in the form of sacred vessels of the sort encountering in other parts of the Roman Empire. None of Pilate's successors in Judea used these pagan cult symbols. These examples here shows a simplum or ritual ladle. It was the smallest coin in circulation, referred to in Mark 12:42 and Luke 21:2 as a lepton, right? And this photo is from Dr. Mark A. Stahl, right, brothers and sisters. So I'm bringing these archaeological artifacts and evidence to show that these things, these are incidents and whatever took place in scriptures are literally true, and these are physical evidence of physical characters lived in those times, brothers and sisters. So this book is not a Christian book. This Bible that is for ethnic history, that speak of our history, our rise and our fall and return back to glory, is a literal physical book that's fulfilling every single day, brothers and sisters, right? And it's for us. We need to come back to these laws, commandments, and statutes, brothers and sisters, right? For it is a beautiful thing and it's not burdensome. You make it burdensome because you love the world and the things of the world. And because of that loss of the world, when the world passes away, you're going to pass away with it. When the world is destroyed, you're going to be destroyed with it. Because that's your God. The God of this world is your God, which is Satan. Because you refuse to come back to these laws, commandments as a people, stiff-necked ethnic Israel. Right? So here in the series of letters of Pilate to Herod, right, brothers and sisters, so all I could say to you, brothers and sisters, come back to the Most High Yahuwah and Yahusha's name as a people and keep his laws, commandments, and statutes. But unfortunately, many of us will not take heed to this warning and this good news of Yahusha second coming to save ethnic Israel and restore us back to our former holiness and glory in Yahusha. You understand? Because a remnant of us shall be saved, right? A remnant of us shall the Most High allow to go back and build up the walls of Zion and the tabernacle of David, the Negro, right? Right, brothers and sisters. So on that note, Bruk Yahweh Tizivaho, Bruk Yahweh Shama Shiach, Shina, Shina, Vishna, blessed love and shalom.